Hello everyone, my name is Chen. I'm a postdoc researcher at Stanford and received my PhD from UT Austin. The title of my talk today is 4D Audiovisual Perception, a visual perspective of sound propagation and production, which covers most of my PhD work and some of my ongoing work here at Stanford. As we all know, human perception is multisensory. We often use vision, audio, touch, and smell to sense the world. For example, when baby plays with piano keys, they associate the key color with the sound it produces. Or when we have a conversation in a crowd, we not only hear other people's voices, but also see their lip movement. There is a rich and natural correspondence between visual and sound. Because of this correspondence, audiovisual learning has gained a lot of attention in the past couple of years, and many tasks have been proposed. Let's look at this video. For example, one of the tasks is audiovisual classification, where the goal is to classify what's happening in the video, and in this case, is drum playing and piano playing. Other people also try to separate the audio streams in the video or to localize the sound sources on the video. While most of these work are object-centric, meaning that they focus on the semantic correspondence between sight and sound of objects while overlooking the correspondence with the space. What do I mean by the correspondence with the space? Let's look at this example. See how one drum kit could sound differently in 5 different spaces. You can see how the geometry of the environment and material of different surfaces will affect the sound we hear. And why do we care about the spatial correspondence between audio and visual? Because this is important for many applications. For example, for autonomous robots, we want them to be able to react to human speech commands or to react to emergencies such as oil alarm going off and locate the location of this emergency. It's also important for augmented and virtual reality, where we want to provide users with immersive auditory and visual experience, or for generative models where we want to generate synchronized video and audio streams. My research aims to go beyond object-centric learning and focus on the correspondence between sight and sound in spaces, which considers the 3 spatial dimensions as well as the temporal dimension of sound, thus 4D audiovisual perception. More specifically, I'll cover these 3 different topics in this talk: simulating and navigating with sounds in spaces, synthesizing sounds in spaces, and learning action sounds in spaces. So let's go into the first one. To start with, I'll provide some brief background. Recently, several large-scale datasets containing 3D scans of real-world environments have been released. In parallel, multiple simulation environments have been created in order to simulate embodied motion in these 3D scans. The primary advantages of using these simulation environments are that they allow large-scale training, fast experimentation, consistent benchmarking, and replicable research. These are generally hard to achieve with actual robots. While it is not clear how to bridge the gap between simulation and real world, recent work has shown that the gap can be effectively bridged for visual navigation if the right type of noise is introduced. So we want robots that can see, hear, and react in the environment. Before our work, there were vision-only robots that can move around in the environment and move to a location specified by humans, or visual robots that can interact with environments, or visual robots that can follow human instructions, but no robots were able to hear in the environment because there was no existing simulation that supports audiovisual rendering. To support this, we built a first-of-its-kind audiovisual simulation platform. And here is the demo. What is acoustic simulation? The goal of acoustic simulation is to simulate a perceptually valid approximation of the room impulse response, which typically consists of direct sound that propagates directly from the source to the receiver, early reflection that bounces a couple times before reaching human ears, or late reversion that bounces many times on surfaces before reaching human ears. Our simulation is also physics-based, meaning that we take the 3D geometry of the environment into consideration, as well as the material properties. For example, the couch should be more absorptive, while the glass table should be more reflective. So we simulate the direct sound, materials, reflections, transmission, reverberation, as well as head-related transfer function that describes how human ears perceive sound in the environment. Altogether, we produce 3 consistent visual rendering and audio rendering. Our simulation is continuous. We offer both spatial and temporal continuity.
Oh, you are the dearest and best Mr. King I ever saw. But how did you make Mammy let her come? Oh, you are the dearest and best Mr. King I ever saw. But how did you...
Our simulation is configurable, meaning that users can change all these parameters from the frequency band, direct sound, indirect sound, transmission, diffraction, to the type of microphones from mono, binaural, to defining your own microphone array. Users can also change the material properties such as absorption coefficients, scattering coefficients, transmission coefficients, and etc. We support arbitrary scene datasets from Gibson Manifold 3D Replica, HM3D, Eagle 4D to your own home environments. You might be wondering how good the simulation is. To provide some real-world evidence of the realism of the simulation, we collect multiple acoustic measurements in the real world to show that our simulation is realistic even compared with real-world measurements. Some spaces have enabled audiovisual embodied AI and beyond, including learning echolocations from the surrounding environment, audiovisual floor plan mapping, neuroacoustic rendering, sound localization from motion, audio scene reconstruction. This work has opened up space for many new research opportunities, and we have also organized some challenges at both vision and audio workshops, conferences. With this simulation, we then introduce the audiovisual navigation task, where we define the audiovisual navigation as an intelligent agent navigating to a sounding object with vision and audio perception. This is again important for robotics applications. In this figure, the top-down map is overlaid with the acoustic pressure field, where the gradient of the field reflects the distance the agent needs to take to reach a goal. We train a reinforcement learning policy for the agent to take both vision and audio as input and output action in the environment, where the agent learns by trials and error and is rewarded for getting closer to the goal. And here is one demo of the navigation. Not only it works in the simulation, but also in the real world. In the follow-up work, I showed that we could also possibly transfer a policy trained in the simulation to the real world with some frequency adaptive acoustic field prediction. Here, the robot is navigating to the person with the sound holding the phone. Simulating 3D scene acoustics with a computational approach requires full knowledge of the world, but how do we approach this with a machine learning model? Let's now go into the second topic, which is synthesizing sounds in spaces. Here I'm introducing the visual acoustic matching task, where we propose to transform a sound, a source sound, like this, conditioned on the picture of a target scene to transform sound to make it sound like it was recorded in the target environment, like this. Now, this poses both challenges in cross-modal reasoning. That is, how do we ask the model to reason about the picture, the acoustics in the image, and inject into the audio, but also how do we obtain the right data for this task? In this paper, we devised a novel acoustic alteration strategy for creating data. So the key idea is for a YouTube video that comes with both image and audio. And here is the audio.
But it's like putting it in the hand of.
You can see the audio, you can hear that the audio is very reverberant because the space is pretty empty. So we first use some off-the-shelf reverberation algorithm to strip away the reverberation as much as possible.
But it's like putting it in the hand of.
You can hear it's much cleaner now. And then we randomize the acoustics by convolving the audio from the last step with the random impulse response.
But it's like putting it in the hand of.
And lastly, we added some noise to the audio.
But it's like putting it in the hand of.
So in this way, the output audio has the same content as the target audio, but different acoustics. And our model basically needs to take the output audio, condition on the image to reason about the image, and predict the target audio. Given the input image and the audio obtained from the last step, we design a cross-modal transformer model to fuse and perform cross-modal reasoning for these two modalities and output the target audio. By doing so, our model can be trained on in the wild web videos, and our model can match the same input audio to different visual environments. For example, given this input audio,
stuff it into you, his belly counsel.
We can match it to the office environment.
Stuff it into you, his belly counsel.
A garage environment.
Stuff it into you, his belly counsel.
An auditorium environment.
Stuff it into you, his belly counsel.
And here we calculate RT60, which stands for reverberation time decaying by 60 dB, indicating how long the reverberation is in each environment. And we can see the numbers goes up from left to right as the environment increases, indicating that our model reasons about the image content and learns to inject more reverberation into the speech as the environment gets bigger. So far, I have provided a visual perspective of sound propagation, assuming the sound at the source is made in some way, but how is sound actually produced? Let's look at this example. So apparently sounds are strongly associated with the type of actions and the subjects. We interact with objects at every moment of our lives, like when we type on a keyboard, chop vegetables, or put down a coffee mug. And videos capture these human actions and the sound they produce, where we can learn the physical properties of actions such as forces, contact, materials. And this is important because we can use the knowledge to generate the sound effects for AR/VR games, to generate the sound effects for films, or the soundtrack for AI-generated videos. In the last part of my talk, I'm going to talk about how to learn to generate action sounds in spaces. So given this video, how do we generate the sound that's accompanying the video? There is some issue with generating in the wild sounds because in the wild videos have coupled ambient and action sounds. And here are some examples. These ambient sounds are harmful for generation. If we visualize the spectrogram, we can see that the ambient sounds dominate the audio, distracting the model from learning action sounds. Ambient sounds are also only weakly related to the visual scene, if related at all, leads to hallucination. Our key observation to deal with this issue is to utilize the context from a long video because ambient sounds tend to stay similar throughout a long video. And here are two short clips selected from the same long video. You can see that the humming sound in the background is shared across these two videos, which is very hard to predict from the visual alone. Given a sequence of images and its audio track, which consists of the foreground action sound, the background ambient sound, prior methods typically take the video frames and try to predict the audio directly, while our model also takes into consideration a nearby audio segment. So during training, we provide the model with a temporarily nearby audio clip, and conditioning on this clip encourages the model to focus on action sound generation while learning to ignore the ambient sound. We also extend a latent diffusion model to accommodate both audio and visual inputs. At inference time, we use the input video to retrieve a sound from the training set as the condition because we do not assume that the model had access to the long video. By doing so, we allow two modes of generation. One is action ambient joint generation, where we retrieve an audio as a condition from training set that the model generates both the action sound and the ambient sound. But sometimes it's also desirable to generate the sound alone, so we also allow the model to condition on a given low ambient sound, where the model will focus on generating the action sound. To enable the model for training, we curated 1.2 million clips of in the wild actions, along with action descriptions from Eagle40, which is the largest egocentric video dataset. And here are three examples. And here are some results generated by our models. Here is the action ambient joint generation. Note that this video clip has never been seen before, and our model generates plausible and realistic action ambient sounds. And here is the action focused generation. You can see that the model generates clean action sounds and removes the background ambient sound. Here is the result from the best performing baseline. And here is the original audio. Here are some other examples. You can see both our action ambient generation and action focus generation generates temporally synchronized audio with the video. The ground truth. Here is another example. Similarly, in this example, while the action sound is preserved, the ambient sound is largely gone. For this project, I started by motivating with applications on generating sound effects for AR VR games. Can we do that? To understand how well it does, I tested my trained model on some VR cooking games called Clash of Chefs, where the recordings are also egocentric. So here is a game clip. You can hear there are three cutting sounds, and here's what we generated. So this preliminary results show that our model can generate synchronized action sounds, suggesting the promising future in learning action to sound generation from real videos and applying them on VR games. To summarize, in this talk, I covered how we could simulate sounds, navigate with sounds, and generate action sound in spaces. I believe multimodal learning is one of the promising future directions for powerful and responsible AI. Thank you for listening.